This remote, inhospitable chunk of rock is pounded by the massive waves of the surrounding Atlantic Ocean that is renowned for its huge storms. This is Bird Island, the most northerly seabird landmass in South Africa, and one of only 6 gannet breeding colonies in the world. The birds annually nest here for 10 months, arriving in August each year. They migrate from here during the winter months because of the dangerous winter swells. It is during the summer months that they gather to mate and have their young. Ungainly on land, the Cape gannet has a heavy-set body shaped like a bullet, a long neck, and a sleek reptilian head, equipped with incongruous blue eyes and a sharp beak. The beak has a serrated edge to hold on to slippery fish. Their beautiful white plumage and golden-colored head is completely waterproof. Their feet are a green-blue due to the network of capillaries that keep their extremities warm in the icy water. They rest their feet on their eggs when they nest to keep them warm. The massive numbers of gannets are a great attraction to visitors. Bird Island is the largest colony in South Africa. People walk the old harbor wall daily during the summer months, but they are not allowed on the island during the winter. The walkway, which links the island to the mainland, is often covered by seawater due to the powerful storms at this time. The bird hide here offers a perfect viewpoint from which to watch these fascinating birds. In winter, the waves here reach halfway up the artificial structure and can be dangerous to both visitors and animals alike. This is the only breeding and roosting colony attached to the mainland that is easily accessible to the public and allows them to visit and observe this remarkable bird. This island has a turbulent history for the gannet colony and its neighboring seal nursery, stretching back to the late 19th century. People were interested in harvesting white gold, or guano, or in layman's terms, gannet poop. Rich in phosphates and nitrates because of the bird's fish diet, guano was used as a fertilizer since the time of the Incas and was previously worth its weight in gold. With deposits of up to 66 feet deep and weighing almost 1 million tons, this was indeed a gold mine. The guano value had dire consequences for the birds. Gannets use guano to make nests that protect their young from extreme weather and predators. When it was removed, many birds died or left the island, and the gannet population drastically declined. The gannet has since returned, and the population has steadily increased in the last few years. The island is crowded. It supports the Cape gannet, a small colony of cormorants and a nursery of Cape fur seals that live on the far side of the island. African penguins used to be common on the island, but without a dependable food source and guano for nests, the penguins left. It is late January, and the breeding season is almost over. Eggs have hatched, juveniles are ready to fledge, and the birds must prepare themselves to leave for the next cycle in their life. As the summer draws to an end, immature birds are pushed to the outside of the colony, where they must learn to fly. Once this is accomplished, they will learn to fish on their own. If they don't, they will starve. Those that survive will return here when they are adults. The open ocean is important to the gannet. Not only does it provide the food they need, it is also vital for the growth of the young gannets. They leave their home on the island to spend years at sea. There, they learn where to find the best food supply and the changes of the wind and the ocean. All this information will educate them when they return to the island as mature adults, ready to bring up their own chicks. The gannets roost here in huge colonies, numbering in their thousands. Today, there are more than 5,000 breeding pairs here. They return year after year to breed, and to leave another layer of guano covering the only flat surface on the island to make their nests. The juveniles and other immature adults are easy to pick out from the noisy throng. Their plumage is darker, they have not become completely white yet, and the older ones have more black on their wings than the adults. They have also evolved an elaborate series of movements that help reduce aggression in the close-knit community they live in. A pair of gannets can often be seen rubbing beaks with each other. Billing is their way of reducing tension between partners. A pair will often preen and groom each other. another method of keeping the two birds content with each other's company. The position of the island provides the perfect breeding habitat for the gannets. The Atlantic brews heavy weather and strong currents that bring in many varieties of fish species, making this place ideally suited for roosting and feeding youngsters. And the rocks on the windward side protect the gannets from the Atlantic Ocean. A bird that is about to leave the nest, perhaps to go on a fishing expedition, will raise its beak into the air and flex its wings as it makes its way to the landing strip. This is a clear message to the other birds that he is not an aggressor and that there is no need for concern. It is the gannet's huge, narrow wings, stretching over 6.5 feet, and their beautiful flight, coupled with its remarkable hunting technique and social behavior, that make this bird so interesting. The gannet is a very sociable bird. You can hear the colony long before you reach it. Birds returning from fishing expeditions tell their mates they have returned, and birds leaving the island tell their mates they are leaving. The neighboring seal colony, the crashing thunder of the waves, and the continuous calling of the gannets result in a deafening cacophony of sound. Every movement the gannet makes is a form of communication, with rituals of bowing, stretching, neck twisting, and beak tapping, or billing. These various actions all have significance within the colony, and the gannet's cries identify them to each other as they come into land. In the Atlantic waters, the gannet's closest neighbors, the Cape fur seals, go about their own daily rituals amongst the kelp beds. As you watch the seals diving in the waves, a strange sight unfolds. They're swimming, holding either their flippers straight up in the air or their tail flukes, looking as if they're waving. It is called sailing, and this is how seals keep cool in hot weather. Baby seals, too young to take to the open ocean to cool off, play and learn how to swim and fish in the safety of the secluded cove, formed by the rocky outcrops. In a place this wild, the gannets and the seals need the safety of the rocks to protect them from the elements of wind and sea. Which is why they prefer the flat central area of the island on which to build their nests. Nowhere else along this thin stretch of coastline are there rocks like this. These formations have proved their defiance against the elements for centuries. They are strong enough to withstand storms and are a great attraction to many other species of wildlife that live in this area. The African, or jackass penguin, only lives on the South African and Namibian coastline and eats very similar food to the gannet and other seabirds here. African penguins are tremendous swimmers, traveling up to 45 miles in a single journey to find food. The gannets also share Bird Island with a small colony of Cape and crowned cormorants, the master anglers of the seabird world. These birds also feed on shoaling sardines and have large nests that they build on guano platforms or on rocky cliffs. These towers have added security against potential land predators like cats, domestic dogs, or jackals, which can cross the walkway in the summer. The southwestern African coast is mostly long stretches of white beach, so the security of Bird Island is important for the nesting birds because of their protection against the weather and predators. The weather on Bird Island can be very unpleasant, with gale-force winds and high seas. This African coastline is renowned for its storms. These same weather conditions bring the strong currents and a large variety of fish species along this coastline, making it rich in the resources that the birds need most. It is also basic elements, like the wind, that is so important to the gannet. They are heavy birds, and they live on the flattest part of the island, surrounded by the protecting rocks. With their wide wingspan, the gannets need the wind for lift in order to fly. Only the adults can fly properly, and even then, it is an awkward process until they manage to get into the air. Latecomers to the colony and birds returning from fishing expeditions hover on the fringes of the colony. This is a way to protect the youngest of the colony, with them in the center. There is less chance a predator will reach them. The gannet moves considerable distances to find food. Adults generally fly over 300 miles from their nests during breeding season, but can travel over 2,000 miles when they need to. The immature birds will journey almost 4,500 miles away from the island. As their main food source is the sardine, they follow them. There are other residents here too. This is a relatively safe haven for seabirds. The big kelp gull, with its distinctive white plumage and black head, live on Bird Island all year. They roost in safety elsewhere and are attracted by the fishing boats in the harbor. They are also a danger to the very young gannet chicks and gannet eggs, which they eat. The gulls rest on the rocks around the island, waiting for any opportunity to scavenge. It could be a gannet egg or even an unprotected chick. Most of the time, they will pick up scraps from the local fishing boats, but they are perfectly capable of hunting fish too. On the outer edge of the colony is a well-defined open sliver of land strewn with crushed seashells. This landing strip helps the birds get a running head start. The immature adults practice flight whenever possible. It is a remarkable sight as the big birds flap their wings, set their beaks to the wind, and start the ungainly run to get the liftoff they need. When the wind is low or non-existent, the birds struggle to lift their heavy bodies into the air. Once these birds achieve flight, they are graceful and beautiful. The cormorants are also preparing to leave the island. They must also follow the shoals of fish that are traveling south. But the season is changing quickly, and winter will be here soon. It brings with it high seas and gigantic waves that often cover the island, making it impossible to live here. The gannets will start their long journey south, following the migrating sardine. As the time to leave draws closer, the birds become restless. The strong winds help them get airborne, and the stormy seas and overcast skies are a warning to the birds that it is soon time to head out to the open ocean. Despite the harsh conditions here, the birds will return every year because of the safety of the rocks, the plentiful fish stocks, and the perfect flat breeding area the island provides. As winter approaches, the seas get rougher and the wind picks up. It is almost time for the colony to migrate in search of their elusive winter prey. Birds in their hundreds start to fly away from the island. They fill the air with their raucous cries as they start on a journey that promises to be many thousands of miles long. The cormorants are also on the move. They too must leave the island for the winter months. Even the new fledgling youngsters make preparations to travel the many thousands of miles that lie ahead. This is their first journey out into the wild blue ocean wastes. Every autumn and winter, one of the greatest migratory spectacles occurs on the eastern coast of South Africa, where millions of sardines follow the coastal currents to their breeding grounds. In pursuit, thousands of predators follow the sardines, eager to feed on the bounty of silver fish there for the taking. It is at this time that the true flying and hunting skills of the gannet is tested. Once off the ground, the birds can fly at over 60 miles an hour to catch the schools of sardines. Each predator has its own unique method of hunting. The dolphins work as a team, releasing walls of air bubbles to force the sardines into tight bait balls close to the surface. These bait balls are easy targets for the underwater hunters, and of course, the gannets. Gannets' preferred method of hunting is known as plunge diving. They scout the seas, watching the sea as they fly over the waves, waiting to catch a glimpse of fish shoals close to the surface. When they spot them, they come to a halt in the air, and then they attack. The birds flex their wings, tails, and feet into a W shape, and with total focus on the prey, they plunge headfirst toward the sea. At the last second, they stretch and swing their wings backward, hitting the water like an arrow. Diving from heights of almost 100 feet above the surface of the water, and at speeds in excess of 60 miles an hour, the birds reach depths of up to 26 feet below the ocean's surface. Divers swimming beneath the waves in the sardine shoals have reported that the sound of the birds hitting the water at the peak of their dive is like an explosion of artillery. The birds do not just dive into the sea directly after their prey. They relentlessly pursue them beneath the water, using the momentum from the dive to propel through the water, snapping at the fish as they swim. They use their large webbed feet and wings to push themselves back to the surface of the sea, often grabbing at a fish on the way up. Then they do it again and again. And when the sardine feast is finished and nothing is left but shiny scales floating through the water, the gannets will stay in the area for a time, feeding on any fish that remain. When the food supply starts to dwindle, they move on. Eventually heading back toward the north and their own breeding grounds on Bird Island. It is August, and the worst of the winter swells are past. Life here continues. The adult gannets have returned to the island from the east coast of South Africa. Last season's fledglings are out on the open ocean and will not return to their home for at least 3 years. Year after year, the mating pairs return to the island. They are very attached to their nest sites, their breeding partner with whom they mate for life, and to the colony as a whole. The breeding life of Cape Gannets begins when juveniles return to the breeding colony in their 3rd year. The cycle begins with the males establishing a nesting territory that is just large enough for the 2 adults and a nest. Then, it is a matter of building the big, messy nests. They may be clumsy as they waddle about the island, but the gannets are masters of precision and delicacy as they gently pick up choice bits of mud, guano, and shells that litter the beaches to build their nests. This easy accessibility to nesting materials makes the birds' relationship to the island so successful. No competition for materials means less tension and less aggression. The nests are rudimentary homes made of guano, mud, shells, and even feathers and bones of former residents. In fact, anything they can find. August on Bird Island is slightly more temperate. The area is warming up, and because of the rains, there is more than enough nesting material available. It is still muddy and fairly wet, but the birds are waterproof, so it's just dirty feathers they must deal with. Female gannets wander about the outskirts of the colony, waiting for prospective males to court them. The process of courting can be complicated and noisy. The male must impress his intended mate with calls, head shaking, and bowing. If interested, she will approach her beloved with her head tilted upwards, and the two birds will bill and coo together to solidify their pair bond. After the nest building, a single egg is laid, and the circle of life started 10 months ago repeats. The newly born chicks are naked and helpless, but quickly grow into large, ungainly youngsters covered in a fluffy coat of down. At this time of year, it can be muddy and wet, but the seas are calmer and storms are not as frequent. It is also hotter, with temperatures reaching 94 degrees Fahrenheit. And for the birds gathered close together in such huge numbers, keeping cool is very important. The gannets sit with their heads stretched upwards, beaks slightly agape, and their necks gently fluttering. This is gular fluttering. Gular fluttering is a form of personal air conditioning practiced by these birds. It doesn't take up space, so it doesn't cause tension or aggression. Yet it allows the animals to cope with the high temperatures here on the island. The young gannets are easily recognizable by their fluffy coats, protection against the chilly nights and warm days. Older chicks have lost their fluffy overcoats and now have a sleeker aspect and are black in color. From beneath, they are black silhouettes, unlike the gleaming white of the adults, with their black-tipped wings and golden heads. The chicks are well cared for by the adults who travel out to sea on a daily basis to fish for the family. Sometimes foraging over 60 miles from the shore, or even traveling distances of up to 2,000 miles. It all depends on the availability of their food source, the sardine and pilchard. It is easy to tell which birds are parents and which are not. The birds that fly into the middle of the colony are the parents, who are returning to their mates, waiting on nests. Singletons and younger birds or latecomers tend to keep to the outskirts of the flock. The adults need to keep the youngsters well fed if they are to grow strong enough to fly away in the winter months. The fluffy young eat a mixture of regurgitated fish from the parents. The adults easily catch most of their food close to the shore. When food supplies dwindle, then the parents must travel further afield to catch their dinner. At a certain stage of the young bird's life, they stop taking food from the adults and move to the outskirts of the colony. There, they mingle with the single birds that have yet to find a partner, waiting until they feel ready to take their long first flight out on the open ocean. Cormorants use the rocks to dry themselves in between fishing expeditions. They have waterproof plumage, but must continuously maintain their feathers by preening to keep them pristine. The gulls use the rocks as a vantage point, as they are predominantly scavengers. Juveniles stop taking food from the adults about 10 days before they are ready to leave the colony for their first flight. When they fly away, hungry and ready to take on the vast ocean, they will stay away for up to 3 years, living at sea until they in turn are ready to return, find a mate, and breed the next crop of Cape Gannets. These birds remain on the island for now, rearing their young chicks and preparing for the next part of their life cycle. Bird Island, protected by its craggy rocks and isolation, remains a safe haven for the gannets and the other animals that call this rock in the Atlantic Ocean home. Storms will continue to assault this part of the African coast, delivering vital food and wind to the gannets of Bird Island. The ocean and its rich biodiversity are an important aspect in the life of the gannets and other species that live here. And so, the cycle of life continues.